right. Well, welcome everybody to Elbows Up. Beautiful. And thanks for taking time out of your busy day to join us today. So I am Terry Gillis, President and CEO of ARIA Consulting, and my partner in crime on so many different levels.
Hi,
Boom.
I'm Kelly Gillis, Vice President here at ARIA Consulting.
When again, thank you for joining us. I know you got 1,000 other things you could be doing right now, so we're just privileged and honored that you've decided to spend a little bit of time with us today. This is the whole elbows up concept. Really came out of, for those that are up on pop culture right now, is Mike Myers in Saturday Night Live in January. I think it was January. Wore the Canada's not for sale and said elbows up in response to some of the narrative coming out of the United States around the 51st state and Canada. You need to become the 51st state, yada yada, and we're gonna do tariffs and whatnot. And if you go back to, for those of you who are familiar with Gordie Howe, one of the greatest hockey players of all time, that's where the title or the phrase elbows up came from. And in fact, it was really, when you go into the corners, you bring your elbows up for two reasons. One is it's really a defensive posture in hockey, but also, so it protects you. But the other reason is it really kind of asserts dominance. And that's what Gordie Howe often talked about. So in the context, although it has a bit of a violence connotation to it, really what we're thinking about here is how we can be resilient, how we can be assertive, how we can protect ourselves at the same time of, asserting ourselves in the marketplace. So it's about taking a stand, and it's about taking a stand against external pressures that we're experiencing today. Because let's face it, our world is wow. Okay, I've been around for a few years. I get the gray hairs to show it. And I've not seen this kind of seismic shift that we're experiencing now. Sure, we saw it during COVID. Yes, we saw it 2008 through 2010 with the economic downturn. Certainly, for those of my vintage would remember the 1990s and Bob Ray days, dare I say it. So it's not like we're immune to change, but this time seems really intensely different. And it's in that context that we've been thinking about, well, what do we need to do collectively in our organizations to have our elbows up, to assert ourselves, but also to protect ourselves? And that's really what we're going to share some of our thoughts on that today. Hopefully, have a little Q&A at the end so we can, get your insights, answer questions you have, really maybe get into a bit of a dialogue. We're going to open up though, just for those that are with us. If you'd be so kind, we like to make these a little bit interactive. I know we can't put everybody on the screen. It gets a little bit muddled, but what we can do is we can do a quick poll. And what we're interested in is, what word would you say best describes the current business environment that you find you and your organization? Is it chaotic? Is it volatile, stable? Maybe it is. That would be interesting. Uncertain, exciting, full of opportunity. So, love to take a few seconds, think about that one. Obviously, I'm not going to hold anybody to account on this one, but we're really just, how would you describe that? What do you see? What are you feeling out there? And then we'll get Marissa to take those results and share those with us momentarily, just to get a feel for where things are. So we know where everybody is who's on the call with us today, on the webinar with us today. So Marissa, I'm going to let you stick handle this part. Marissa is part of our team, and super critical for us because we're too old to be able to figure out all this technology. So probably know it a little bit, but it's honestly better if she does it. So there we go. All right. So uncertain wins the day. 63% of you saying uncertainty, not surprising. And uncertainty is a bit of a, it's a bit of a scary place to be, frankly, when it's just unknown and uncertain, and certainly makes you want to pause a little bit and think about things. We use a term here for a whole host of reasons, but we really call it about being in disruptive times. And the rupt part is capitalized for a very specific reason, because we think that reflects where our world is today. And the R is for rapid change. That the change that we're experiencing it's like lightning speed. In fact, at any moment now, President Trump is going to, issue executive order 5,062 or whatever he's up to now, changing yet again the goalposts on automotive tariffs. So it looks like what is being reported in the Wall Street Journal and certainly coming out of the White House, those leaks that happened to kind of prime the pump, as it will, is that they're going to remove the tariffs on car parts so long as the cars are manufactured in the United States. That could be very good news for Southwestern Ontario for some of you on this call who are part of that industry. But that change could happen instantaneously. And, from now where we're looking at 25% compounding on 25%, compounding on 25%. Oh, and a stroke of a pen, it's gone. So rapid is epic right now. Um, the U in RUP stands for unpredictable or uncertain, right? Things are shifting without warning, and it disrupts business plans. So, 3 weeks ago, if you're in the automotive sector, you're planning, okay, what are we going to do to help us navigate through these tariffs? Now, today, maybe they're removed. So, it is constantly in a state of flux and shift, and makes trying to get your finger on the pulse of things really, really difficult. It's paradoxical in the sense that these challenges are not straightforward. They're paradoxical in the sense that on the one hand, innovation, creativity, coming up with new ideas, juxtaposed against risk, juxtaposed against status quo, juxtaposed against like maybe just taking a breather and having a timeout for a little bit. So we live in this paradoxical, if I do this, what happens to this? The trying to get the balance. And then, of course, the last one is tangled, and we only have to look at our trading across the globe as to how intertwined we all are, despite Mr. Trump's perception otherwise, or at least his ideation to untangle that. So we are very much connected, and globalization has been the rallying call for business for the better part of 20, 30 years, and now that's seemingly unwind. So it's very difficult to just at a stroke of a pen to change things. So we live in this really rupturous time, for lack of a better term, where things are changing beneath us in a very unpredictable, paradoxical, and we know that our worlds are very tangled. So uncertainty, that's the new norm. There it is. You called it on the poll. Political instability, just in and of itself. So Canada just had an election yesterday. Certainly the polls and pundits were predicting various outcomes. And some of you may be happy today, some of you may be disappointed. But here's the reality. Whether you like the outcome or not, we are back in a minority government again. Minority governments are not stable. So at a time when our nation's politics require some degree of stability, we have, by virtue of the definition of minority government, political instability. That is potentially good news if your party didn't win, potentially bad news if the country has to continue to fight Donald Trump for the next 3 or 4 years. And minority governments last on average about 18 to 24 months. So we'll be through this cycle again. Instability, that's becoming the normal here in this country. Economic turbulence, of course, we know that with no uncertainty. We've gone through a period of hyperinflation. We've gone through a period of housing crisis where we don't have access to homes for a lot of people. We have supply chain disruptions only making worse through tariffs. I mean, I'm speaking to the choir. I'm sure I don't have to continue to reiterate these things, but this is the world that we live in today. And then business complexity, of course, and the one that I always, if you've been on a webinar with yours truly before, you know that I was going to bring this up because it is the canary in the coal mine, and the canary in the coal mine is really our demographics in Canada. If you look at this chart, the yellow, which is from 2022, the purple line, the solid line, not the filled in part, that's the distribution of our population. What's the real message here? We don't have enough people to fill the roles in the future. If you look at the group that's in that 0 to 20 year age group, that's the next iteration, that's the next cohort of workers in our organizations. We simply do not have enough of them. Now, perhaps, some people are saying, well, with the tariffs and downturns and layoffs and all those sorts of things, that's a temporary fix at best. The talk was anywhere between 20 and 25,000 workers would be retiring out of Southwestern Ontario manufacturing over the next 10 years. So this is still It's still the canary in the coal mine. We're not focused on this once again, and there's just simply not enough people. That produces significant complexity to our organizations. So, wow. Well, thanks for telling us that, Terry. That's a real cheer up news. Maybe we can all be happy after hearing that one. But there are things we can do, and that's why we're here today. Um, so, hand it over to Kelly to talk a little bit about some of the things we can do. Kelly, over to you.
Thanks, Terry. So we want to turn our attention to what can we do now, given all of these challenges that we're facing inside of our organizations and externally in our environment. And we really want to advocate that historically and today more than ever, we really need to shift into that proactive mode as leaders. We need to shift away from firefighting and into what we're calling future building. And how do we do that? In times of uncertainty, leaders are often fighting fires, dealing with the next crisis that's in front of them. And what does that result in? Burnout for the leaders and burnout for others on their teams. And so we really want to advocate that we need to look at those characteristics and traits that are going to help us to move out of that reactive stance or status quo position into that more proactive elbows up strategy that we want to talk about. So we pulled together some traits for you to look at today in terms of what are some of those proactive styles of leadership or strategic leadership that we really want to be emphasizing inside of our organizations. So proactive leaders are future focused. They're always scanning the horizon, looking at the opportunities in front of them, looking at the challenges, looking for signals in the environment that can help them understand how they're going to be impacted as an organization, and so that they can be anticipating changes and detecting those shifts early in the business environment. They're willing to challenge the status quo, question assumptions, dig deep into understanding what's going on, seek out diverse opinions and perspectives, and look for new ways of doing things. They're in it for the long game, not the short term fix or that reactive fix. In the absence of clarity, they're able to analyze information available to them, and maybe it is limited information, but they still look for those signals that are out there and pair that with their intuition to really determine what insights they can gather in order to sort out the complex environment that they're a part of and make decisions. And so moving to a place where you can actually make decisions, even in the face of uncertainty or limited information, is really critical in order to move forward strategically and actually, again, shape that future as opposed to being shaped by it. So they balance speed. They don't necessarily make quick decisions always if that's not warranted, but they also don't sit idle waiting for more information, waiting, and not being clear in terms of how they want to move forward. They align and inspire effort by casting the vision and creating a sense of purpose throughout the organization. And I've got to say, we've had a really number of compelling conversations lately with some of our clients about getting back to purpose, understanding purpose, and really testing whether people inside your organization actually can articulate the purpose of the organization and tie what they do in the organization to that overall sense of purpose. And again, those strategic leaders are always ensuring that purpose is front and center inside their organization, and everybody is aligned to that purpose and able to understand how their actions are contributing to the desired goals and outcomes. And finally, being able to learn and adapt, being open to new ideas, fostering a learning culture that embraces experimentation and innovation. Strategic leaders create resilience inside of their organizations and organizations that are future ready, whereas reactive leadership tends to result in organizations that may achieve some short-term wins for sure, but in the long run, there's instability and compromised outcomes as a result. So we're going to do another poll. I can turn the slide ahead. So what leadership style does your organization typically adopt when facing change? And I know it may vary, but overall, we'd love to hear from you. Do you find your organization mostly reactive, very proactive and strategic, maybe more of a balance, choosing the style at certain times, or inaction, status quo, really not making decisions, not moving forward in any way? Or you're not sure. And again, these are confidential. Nobody's seeing your individual answers, but we'd love to see what overall individuals in the group are saying.
This is always
Give it
the
another
exciting part.
minute.
See what the results are going to be.
Yeah, I feel like we should have music here. Do, do,
Should.
do, do,
Yeah, right.
do,
The
do,
Jeopardy music.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah, next webinar.
Thanks so much.
Yeah.
For sure.
All
Ooh,
right,
interesting.
so interesting. So we've got 16% mostly reactive, 20% mostly proactive, a balance, 52%, some more that status quo, 12%. Okay. So that balance, it maybe is a great place to be, right? Where sometimes a bit of caution is warranted when there is uncertainty, but not freezing, right? That's the worry that we have, that organizations freeze, and it's that status quo or lack of proactivity that sets us back. So if you move to the next slide, what is that cost of inaction? So some of the things, we think about missed opportunities for innovation and really propelling your organization forward can also create a loss of trust and engagement inside the organization where people are really feeling very stagnant, not really sure how to move forward, not trusting that leadership is really clear on where we're headed or why we're headed that way, and it really can create that disengagement inside of organizations. And again, higher risk in times of disruption. So in environments like this where we sit stagnant for too long, it really can create that organizational risk. And I think for me that, when I think about across my career and look for examples in my career where, inaction hasn't necessarily served us well. If anybody's on the webinar that knows me in my sort of past career working in the healthcare industry, there was a lot of inaction, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of waiting and seeing. Where's the government going to go? Oh, we're moving to election. What's going to happen after the election? Well, I know the signal is we're supposed to be moving towards greater integration, key buzzword. But we're just going to wait and see. And maybe if we wait and see, we won't have to actually move forward towards this integration path, as an example. And so, organizations who didn't sit and wait and still read the tea leaves and kept moving, I think have created better outcomes inside of their organizations. So there is a cost to our organizations when we don't act, when we choose complacency, or we choose to wait, or we choose that status quo option. So that's what we really want to be avoiding as organizations. So we want to move to the next slide, Terry. We want to really look at building organization resilience through intentional leadership. We want to be looking at how we create a culture that's agile and that we have systems and processes that ensure we're nimble inside of our organizations. We want to always be encouraging innovation, not just focused on execution. We want to look at how we do things better, more effectively, how we can innovate and create, and again, reap the benefits of those actions. And to do that, we need to continue to develop leadership at all levels. It's not just about leadership at our most senior individuals inside the organizations. It's creating that leadership culture throughout our organizations so that we're optimizing all of the contributions of the individuals that are aligned with our organization and helping us to achieve our outcomes.
Can I
And I
jump in there real
think,
quick,
yeah,
Kelly?
for sure. And it's back
Oh,
to you too, Terry. So go for
oh,
it.
perfect. So I just, as I think, words on slides are great and whatnot, but I think sometimes using examples can be compelling. I was just with a group about a couple of weeks ago, and we were doing some leadership training, and we were talking about the whole notion of accountability. And one of the things that I think is true for everybody is that you have accountability throughout the entire organization. And this organization, which was it's a big global company, so it's very hierarchical, et cetera. And one of the aha moments they had was that their accountability was not just for the folks that reported to them, but their accountability was also to those that they reported to. Now, for many of us on this call, I suspect it'd be like, duh. But it was a light bulb moment for many people inside that organization that they felt that their domain, that their leadership was only a top down as opposed to a bottom up. And it's a huge learning for them to understand that, communication, providing information, providing feedback. And one person said, "Well, I have a real problem with something my leader did." I said, "Did you have a conversation about that?" They said, "Well, I can't do that." I was like, "Well, why not?" Well, because they're my boss. It's like, well, how do you get better? How do you build organizational resilience? How do you build leadership if you're not giving that feedback? So when I saw that there, it just twigged that memory for me around don't we sometimes make assumptions that people know these things, and it's shocking sometimes how they don't embrace them. So just a little bit on that. So we're going to move into something that's near and dear to our heart, which is really how we support folks like yourselves and where that support comes from when you need it. And we've called it workforce optimization. So and it really resonates in the context of elbows up. It really resonates in the context of, being assertive, asserting ourselves while also protecting ourselves. How do we optimize the workforce that we have? So at its core, and we all know this, that your business strategy is intimately tied to your environment or your market that you're in. And the two are symbiotic. As your environment changes, your strategy needs to change. Or if you change your strategy, you probably need to change your market. I mean, that's just intuitive. It makes a lot of sense. We can all nod our heads and go, thank you very much. Thanks for Business 101, Terry. That's very good. This is the point that we've really trying to push forward, and that is it really floats back into at the core of that concentric circles is your employer brand. And your employer brand is your reputation in the marketplace. How do people see you? Not for what you sell, not for the service or product that you sell. That's important. That's the domain of your marketing people. They do a good job of that 9 times out of 10. But how do employees or potential employees view you? In the context of we have uncertainty, in the context of we have instability. Is this an organization that's turtling? Is this an organization that's adapting? What is your brand in that context? The three concentric circles, we believe there are three core pieces to that, which is your ability to attract the right talent, the ability to keep them, because with the population the way it is, we want to hold on to those good people. And then when you have to transition, do you do that well? And those overlaps are what creates that brand. The connection back to market, the connection back to strategy is this attract, retain, transition should be an intimate part of your overall organizational strategy. And sadly, sometimes that gets lost. Sometimes that gets second or third look as opposed to primary look. We will do our finances, we'll do our accounting, we'll get the marketing people, we'll get the product people. This is the core of a good execution of strategy. Most of the people on this call, I can guarantee that your organizations are nothing without the people in them. So doing that side of the business, the workforce side of your business, optimizing that workforce is a super critical piece to business strategy. So with our environment currently in flux right now, we should be seeing these things under consideration inside your organization. How well are we doing with attracting? Are we got that nailed down? Are we good with retention? Are we good with transition? And that parlays into a couple things that we think are top of mind right now. First one being recruitment. Terry, my goodness, why are you talking about recruitment? Isn't everybody like lining up for layoffs? There's going to be 500,000 workers impacted by tariffs across southwestern Ontario, and the sky is going to fall in, and the world's coming to an end, and yada yada yada. Negative news is very compelling. Yes, recruitment, because you need to win that war for talent with good intention. If you don't have good intention, you'll get passed by. So we shift our focus to more than just posting a job, more than just waiting to see who responds to that job. It really requires us to shift our strategies. Gone are the days of we put an ad up, like ants to a picnic, everybody comes along, submits resumes. We go through the, hey, we'll have an interview with you. And that was lovely because the world of technology has completely upended that. A passive approach no longer works in our environment. We have to get intentional about our recruitment. We have to do a couple things. One is your candidates are coming to you now. They've been their resumes, by the way, have been put through every AI, chat GPT, or whatever your favorite AI tool is. And people look at the resumes now and go, my goodness, look, that's exactly the person I'm looking for. Not because the person came up with it, but because some technology has taken their content and morphed it into what you're looking for. Then you think, okay, well, we can get past that. We're pretty smart. We can figure that out. Oh, no, no, no. Now they're coming into your organizations trained by AI bots in terms of how to respond to the questions. So now They've already sourced it out ahead of time. So it's really a little bit like actors on a stage. It's a great story. It's a great performance. But at the end of the day, 3 weeks after you hire them, you go, who the heck is that guy? Who the heck is that person? Where did they come from? Because they're so well coached. Intentional recruitment means we go beyond the traditional ways of looking at recruitment, which is sort of a stimulus response, put a job ad up and see what happens. It's really about um, getting to that talent that is in flux. Talent is moving, even in uncertain time. Our talent pools are in flux. They are moving. They're not staying put. They're seeking where is the stability, but at the same time, where is the growth? Do I want to be with an organization that's turtling in the context of tariffs and trade wars and everything else, or do I want to be an organization that's in a growth mode despite all of the noise we're hearing in the marketplace? They're reskilling, they're career pathing. Those are top priorities now. How can you help me help you? Employees are wondering, what is it in it for me? I will come and give you my service. I'll give you my skills, experience, knowledge in exchange for a paycheck. All those things are great. But also they're like, how am I going to be better off as part of this journey with you? How's my career going to advance as part of my journey with you? We need to be ready to be having those conversations with employees and potential employees. And to what Kelly referred to earlier around purpose. Purpose rules the day. The trifecta of motivation, mastery, get really good at your craft, autonomy, get out of my way, don't micromanage me, I got this figured out, and purpose. I was with an organization just last week that really hadn't had the conversation about purpose for some time. And they do some amazing work. I won't disclose it for sake of confidentiality. But we went through a very quick exercise with their senior leadership team to say, okay, it's more than just making money. What's it about? And at the end of the session, a couple of the senior leaders were actually had tears in their eyes because they had never really taken the time out to really figure out what role they played in the world, why they existed. It's more than just making money. Sure, money's important. Let's not, dismiss that. But what is your purpose? Why are you here? I can tell you why Ari is here, and many of you have heard this story before. But we believe that everybody deserves a great place to work. It's why we do the work that we do. It's why those concentric circles make sense to us. Nobody should go to a job. Nobody should go to work and be miserable. Like it drives me crazy when I go into workplaces and you hear, "Oh, hi, Dave. How are you today?" Well, it's Monday. Like as if a day of the week is an emotion. Well, tomorrow is the big one, right? Tomorrow's hump day because you just get to noon hour and you're halfway through the shit show, right? I mean, that's how we live. And we have an entire restaurant chain. Here it's going bankrupt, but nonetheless, TGI Fridays, thank God it's Friday. Think about what that says. That's our world. That's sad. Like life's too short. The only thing you do more than work is, of course, sleep, and we sacrifice sleep to go to work. It's really weird talking about paradoxes. Um, but people want purpose and they want to have flexibility now, work from home. Gosh, can you imagine 10 years ago having a whatever? I would say, well, we have to figure out a work from home policy. People think you're crazy, right? But now that's becoming an in thing around if you want people back in your workplaces, how you build great workplaces with, for example, in our building, I don't know why we're having such a hard time, but in the middle of winter, you can hang meat in our place. In the middle of summer, you can cook it. Like, I mean, the AC HVAC is just not great. That has an impact on people coming back to work. I digress. But anyway, recruitment, getting back to purpose, flexibility, what people are looking for becomes uber important. Um, so, what do you think? Run a poll on this one. What are candidates looking for today that you're talking to? What do you think that matters most to them? Is it compensation? Is it purpose, values alignment? That's really exciting. Is it career growth opportunities? What about flexibility? Having that remote or hybrid work kind of environment? Is it culture and leadership quality? And there's probably more, but those are the sort of five we came up with. Love to get your thoughts on this one. Give you a couple minutes to respond to that. Really curious about this one. I gotta be honest. So let Marissa run this one. She'll let us know when the results are in. They'll pop up in front of us here. And if you excuse me for a minute, I'm just gonna wet the whistle here. Thank you. Right. And here we go. Well, Interesting. Compensation still rules the day. Isn't that fascinating? So, and not surprising given the landscape that we're in today, where the rising costs and whatnot can have an impact. Purpose. Yeah, these are not untoward. So, culture and leadership becomes really important. No question about that at all. So, thank you for that. That's really insightful. So, moving right along. The other side, the flip side of recruitment is outplacement, supporting transition with integrity. Outplacement is a strategic tool. Why? If you have to exit somebody from your organization, do it well. It impacts your brand. Okay. It's beyond just the basic safety nets where you give them severance. Career transition support or outplacement support really helps people get back on their feet. There are major stressors in our lives: death of a loved one, divorce, losing a job. We support people when there's a death of a loved one. We support people going through divorces. And sadly, some organizations provide absolutely no support for those people who lose their job. It's one of life's bigger stresses. It helps build your organizational culture because the people that are still there recognize should the same fate await them, they're going to be well taken care of and not thrown to the wolves. It's more than that. It's supporting individuals and organization really positions your organization as a value-driven, we care about our employees organization. Yes, it manages risk. Yes, it manages your reputation. And in the context of this as well, one of the things we're also involved in right now is those people, we got rid of mandatory retirement several years ago. Those people that are over the age of 65 who might otherwise retire that are still hanging out but really not adding value. How do we help them build an exciting retirement plan that's attracted to them? Most people, we're status quo people. We do somebody needs to break the inertia. Retirement planning helps those people say, there is a better life outside of work. I'm going to go do that. So, how's your offboarding process? Would you say it's excellent? Would you say it's good? Would you say it's fair? Would you say it's poor? We're not sure. Quick one on this. Again, we'll let Marissa. So we're compassionate and strategic, and we cover off the basics, and we could do a little bit more. We're reactive, we're rushed. We kind of just don't know. We're really curious about this one as well. And where are we? Good. Covers the basics. Excellent. Okay. Some room for improvement. Those are the two bins. And then we've got some excellence out there. Thank you for that. A couple not sure's, a couple, yeah. So this is pretty balanced, not surprising. So a great way to reconsider how you can have an impact on your employer brand. So as part of your offboarding process. So it really is about managing your brand and your morale through transition. If you do it poorly, guess what? People are talking about you. If you're compassionate about it, it reduces the resentment and disruption. We work with people in career transition all the time. I can tell you 95% of them, by the time they shake our hand, they're off to the next opportunity. Will look us straight in the eye and they say, you know what, Terry, or you know what, Kelly, that's the best damn thing that ever happened to me. I'm so glad they made that decision. So a lot of people know it. A lot of people feel it, and they move to the next stage. Why? In part because they get support and understand what's happening. Big deal. And your remaining employees, of course, important. So the other thing I just want to mention is boomerang employees. Those are the employees that leave you either on their volition or your decision, but you hire them back. Look at the air traffic controllers and some of the people in the United States that was fired as part of the Doge thing that Elon Musk was running. They had to hire them back. Treat them well. They'll come back. Yeah, I'll give you a hand. Or as they did in the States, a lot of them were given the one arm salute to Elon Musk. So be careful about that. So, and then alumni networks are super helpful as well as people leave your organization because they become a great source for your recruiting that we talked about earlier. So over to you, Kelly. I've went far too long. I'm getting kicked under the table. I'm being a bad boy here, so I'll zip it now. Over to you.
Thanks, Terry. So the final piece that we wanted to talk about with you today is really focusing on leadership development. And some of you identified that you think candidates, one of the most important things they're looking for is development and growth, and we would certainly agree with that. And most importantly, inside your organization, you need your leaders to develop and grow, and the individuals in your teams to develop and grow. So really important that you're investing in your people before it becomes urgent, before you recognize a significant talent gap that you really don't have the leadership capacity that you need inside your organization. So, really looking at future proofing your leadership pipeline, developing leadership as a continuous practice, and strengthening culture and stability. And what I really want to talk about here is, what does it mean to develop leaders inside your organization? And a little bit of a confession on my part, as I've really had the opportunity to grow and develop myself here at ARIA, as I've learned more and had the opportunity to work with others on leadership development, I recognize some of the shortcomings I had as a leader early on in my career. I just got a lot of shit done, and I was really good at it. But I don't think I was as good as I could have been at helping to grow and groom members of my team to step into their full capabilities. Because you know what? I had to get things done quickly. I didn't have time to develop somebody else. I didn't have time. I would fall into the habit of going to the high performers on the team because I trusted them and I knew I could quickly delegate and get on with it. And hindsight's always 2020. Those opportunities to really look at, how do you bring out the best in all of your team members? How do you support them to grow? And I didn't have training early on how to do good performance management. That, what are your growth goals? What do you want to do? That was what conference do you want to do or what course do you want to do? Here at ARIA, we talk all the time about the 70-20-10 formula for talent development. 70% of your development happens on the job. It's not about sending somebody to a course, to a training program, out to a conference. It's actually about being intentional around those stretch exercises and the items that you're really trying to do within your team to grow and develop them. And as I said, what can get in the way? The leadership, the leader who's busy, the leader who just hasn't really conceptualized it that way. So spending that time, we can go to the next slide, Terry, to really identify and nurture emerging leaders, and really to recognize how to build those strengths and taking the time for that. And like I said, it's not always about investing in training. It's really about just having that intentional focus inside of your organization. So, we just want to talk a little bit about what are some of those traits or capabilities that you really need to be focusing on. So, upskilling for agility, innovation, and adaptability. So, when we used to talk about what are those core leadership requirements, communication, was really critical. But we really talk now too about some of these other things that help you in these challenging times. Again, being agile, being innovative, being adaptable, not being change adverse. Change management skills are critical. And we know from the data how many changes fail inside of organizations. And that's one thing we see time and again working within organizations. There isn't a change management strategy. There aren't good change management skills within leadership. Sometimes we're just throwing one change after another into the organization without being intentional around those skills. And then emotional intelligence and collaboration, really critical, making sure that people are self-aware, first and foremost, that they understand the impact of their actions on others and how they, support working together effectively, because so much of what we do is in the context of teams and collaborations, especially when we're looking at ways to be agile and innovate and be adaptable inside of our organizations. And so really being thoughtful about what are those skills that your team needs. And again, training is always an option. We do lots of training here at ARIA, and we're always happy to work with our clients to support training and development. But if it's not actually being led from inside the organization, that if leaders aren't coaching their team members effectively to adopt new behaviors, to take on new skills, to exercise those skills inside of the organization, you don't get that sort of bump up effect from the efforts that are happening with the organization. And just the final thought on leadership development, it is about creating leadership and accountability at every level. So as I said earlier, it's not just about your senior team or your executive leaders. It's really about, or even your middle management and frontline leaders, it's really cascading that through the entire organization. And how do we get there? How do we have accountability at every level and leadership at every level? Through clear expectations and outcomes, empowering decision making. So what decisions can you make at different levels of the organization? Do I always need to ask somebody for permission, or do I actually have some autonomy to make decisions on my own? And being clear with individuals what they can make decisions on, and encouraging them to do that, supporting them to do that. that fosters ownership and initiative inside of your organization. So, words like micromanaging, words like disempowerment, we hear them all the time inside of our organizations. But really, we need to flip those trends and really create that ownership at the front lines so that they're working to their best of their ability. And all of you are working in alignment to that organizational purpose and the goals and outcomes that you're looking for. So taking the time to slow down and think intentionally about leadership development, talent development inside your organizations is always critical. And it's one of the things that when things get challenging, often get forgotten inside organizations. So don't fall prey to that during these times. It's really remembering to up your game around how you're developing your talent pipeline and supporting individuals inside your organization. So back to Terry for some final
All right.
takeaways from today.
Yeah, we'd like to get these under 45 minutes so we have time for a little Q&A. So we're doing well. So a couple of final takeaways and action plan really. Getting to the mind shift for leading for uncertainty. There's a few key takeaways, an action plan to move forward. Leading in uncertainty doesn't mean that you have all the answers, but it certainly means adopting the right mindset and acting with intention. And getting those quick wins are important, but also balancing that with what are the sustainable strategies going forward. So in that context, one last poll for you, where you would like polls, gives us some good information, keeps you engaged and whatnot. So which action would you say is most urgent for your organization? Building proactive leadership habits, strengthening our recruitment strategy, maybe rethinking our offboarding approach, investing in some leadership development, clarifying organizational purpose, or the old standby other, which we won't get a lot of information from that one, but love to hear your thoughts on this one as well.
If you pick other, feel free to put it in the chat. We
Yeah,
can see
that's
what you're
actually
thinking
good.
of.
Good
Yeah.
call. And we'll wait for Marissa to give us our results on that.
Give everybody time to pick.
Here it comes. This is exciting. Wow. Building proactive leadership habits wins the day. 43%. Invest in leadership development, 22%. That's exciting. That's really exciting because oftentimes, certainly in previous situations or previous economic uncertainty, we didn't see that to the extent that we're seeing it here. So congratulations to you on that. That's pretty epic. Okay. So
Oh,
thank you for
just
playing.
Terry, just
Oh,
somebody, I think somebody picked other, and we've got a couple of people that
oh,
added to the chat.
perfect.
Other
Right
manage
on.
change and growth in the face of new C-suite. Somebody else said
Minister.
maneuvering through the crazy landscape in today's economy.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for sharing
Is
those.
anything there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have the slides open. I've got the video here. I didn't have the chat box open on my end. So thanks for having my back. So, key mind shifts for leading with confidence. Moving from control to adaptability. You got to be flexible. It's hard to keep your arms wrapped around something that's moving all the time. It's kind of like Jello a little bit. Moving from certainty to having clarity of purpose. We're big advocates of getting back to purpose. It really just grounds you in your organization. We've done it now the last couple of weeks, 3 or 4 times, and it's been magical to see this happen. Moving from reaction to strategic action. And again, strategy is trying to determine, read the tea leaves, see where things are going, but having a plan A, plan B, dare I say, even having a plan C, given the tumultuous nature of our world today. We also, balance those quick wins and long-term strategy. What are those small, visible, early actions? That gets people excited. That gets you excited. It wins. Let's face it. I don't know too many people like losing consistently. Most people like to have a win in their win column. It just feels good. It resonates. It's positive reinforcement. Build that momentum and credibility by celebrating those wins, but also keep in mind that future state is important. What are those future state goals? And I think we can learn a lot from some of our colleagues, in Asian countries that they look at things in longer term chunks, better, 100-year time frames. We look at our best quarters, so moving beyond that narrative and thinking a little bit broader than that. So, as always, we always do like to provide free resources. That's part of our give back to our community. Certainly, if you're interested in seeing how you're doing relative to those concentric circles we showed at our workforce optimization, there is a scorecard. It's about 50 questions. It'll take you like 5, maybe 10 minutes, depending on how in-depth you reflect on the questions. But what you get out of that is here's where you're doing really well, and here's where you might be struggling a little bit. So if you're curious about that relative to your organization, maybe get a couple people to complete it for your organization. It's absolutely free. It's all interactive. The cost you might get is we might call you and say, "Hey, any questions?" But that's not too terribly taxing, I would hope. And well as well, we had our webinar. Well, when was the webinar? I forgot. I think we were away, but
In March.
our next level
In March.
March. Okay, yeah. Next level leadership is a solution that we're bringing into the market. We're slowly dripping it into the market, which looks at leadership from a different lens as opposed to the traditional skills lens around, communication and listening and those kinds of things, and moving more into strategic kinds of skills that oftentimes get overlooked when we talk about leadership. So things like being decisive, being proactive. What are some of the other ones, Kelly? You know them better than I do.
Well, all the
Um,
things I talked about, look, challenging, deciding, analyzing data, information,
so that webinar that if you click,
learning organizations. Sorry, Terry.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's good. If you click on that what do you call those? But anyway, it doesn't matter. That
QR code.
diagram. Thank you. That was escaping me. QR code. Yeah. So again, showing my age. That thing, if you just get a funny thing with that thing, you'll get somewhere. But anyway, it'll show you that webinar and give you some further information as well. As always, we appreciate you taking the time with us today. Would love to be able to have a bit of a noodle with you if you have time to hang out with us for a few more minutes and questions or comments. This is where the symbiotic learning happens. We like to learn from you and vice versa. So jump in, hit the chat box. I'll let Marissa to air traffic control this, or maybe Kelly, you've got them as well. So
It's okay. Maybe just while we wait a minute to see if there are any questions. As Terry said, obviously we have these resources. You will receive a recording of the webinar today, and for anybody that registered and didn't make it on, they will receive the recording as well. And we will also send out. So if you miss getting a capture of the QR codes, we'll make sure that we do send out the links to the optimization scorecard and also a link to the next level leadership webinar. So grab it today if you can. But if need be, we'll follow up to make sure you get access to those resources.
I know a few people have been dropping off as we continue to talk. We do appreciate having the opportunity to share some of our thoughts. Also, really important for us is your feedback to us, so we continue to be relevant. There's nothing worse than being irrelevant in the marketplace. So we're here to support. Love to get your feedback, anything, any questions, whatever. We're an open book here at RA. Would love to chat. So feel free to reach out. Kelly, any other comments?
Just thanks, everybody. Really appreciated everyone joining today and enjoy your afternoon.
Yeah, it's nice out there. So, all right. Thanks so much, everybody.